Looks like we're streaming.
Okay, we ready?
Should be ready to go.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm Melanie Campbell. I'm President and CEO of the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and convener of the Black Women's Roundtable. And I want to welcome you on this last day of Women's History Month. I like to call it Women's Her Story Month, for another one of our Power Table talks, virtually, of course. And this is the third annual series with our Power Table. It is being live streamed on the Facebook platform for the National Coalition on Black Civic Participation and our media partner, Roland Martin, Unfiltered. I'm so excited to say that today we have jam-packed, powerful program. To coin a popular phrase, we have something for everyone. First, we will present our 9th annual Black Women's Roundtable report on the state of Black women in the United States. Our theme for our report this year is rebuilding hope, achieving justice, equity, and equality, and building power, protecting voting rights, and saving democracy. Our second panel that will follow is an update on an analysis on Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation process and what are those next steps. Our moderator for panel 1 is our sister Jocelyn Tate, who serves as our senior policy advisor for the Black Women's Roundtable and also served as assistant editor for the 2022 Black Women's Roundtable report. Jocelyn will introduce our co-editors, Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver and Dr. Elsie Scott. In addition to our informative report, as I stated, we will have the follow-up around Judge Jackson's confirmation and that panel will start around 2:05, and that will be moderated by Sister Erin Haynes, editor-at-large for the 19th. So at this time, it is my pleasure to turn over our first panel and our rollout and release of our 9th annual Black Women's Roundtable annual report to Sister Jocelyn Tate and our sisters Elsie and Avis. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Melanie. And I'm so glad to be here for our release of our 9th annual, can you believe it, 9 years, our 9th annual Black Women's Roundtable report on Black women in the United States and key states. And this is our signature annual report of the Black Women's Roundtable. And since this annual report was first published in 2015, it has been used in university classrooms and cited in publications and in the media as a major source or a pulse check, if you will, on the state of America from the perspectives of Black women. And each edition of this report presents pointed commentary and insightful analysis from Black women in academia, corporate America, nonprofits, Black women entrepreneurs on how America is faring in economics, employment, education and health, housing, criminal and environmental justice, and more from all from the vantage point of Black women. Now, this year's report will continue to build on that legacy of the previous reports by just telling America and the world, this is how Black women see it. So let's find out how Black women see it from our co-editors of this year's report, Dr. Avis Jones-DeWeaver, the president and CEO of Insight Unlimited, and Dr. Elsie Scott, the director of the Ronald Walters Leadership and Public Policy Center at Howard University. Thank you both ladies for working on this publication. Now, my first question is to you, Dr. Scott. Now, since the 2020 elections, states have been enacting laws that make it more restrictive for people to vote. Now, with the midterm elections coming up this year, what are Black women in this report saying about the upcoming midterm elections and how these new voting laws could impact Black people's voting power during this election?
Thank you, Jocelyn. First, let me just thank Mel for her vision around producing this report and to thank her for inviting me to be a part of it. I'm happy to join with you and with Avis to be a part of this discussion. Now, there was a lot of interest in writing about the upcoming elections, as well as looking back at what was accomplished in 2020. And so some of the things that I found in the essays that were written about the election, some were very much concerned about the gerrymandering that has taken place, the redistricting, and also, in light of that the census, there were some questions about whether the census was even fair. And so you have women writing about that. You have these new gerrymandering laws, we have these new voting laws, but we cannot let that get us discouraged and decide that we are not going to continue to be engaged in the election process. And so we had some recommendations relating to making certain that we stay on message, that we continue to represent the interests of Black women in terms of the issues that they are most concerned about, because they felt like it's going to be more challenging because they've taken away some of the early voting and some of the opportunities to vote, but you can't let that stop you. But how are we going to entice people to get to the polls? One of the main things they mentioned was that we have to run on the issues. We have to run on the issues that Black women are most concerned about. We have to make sure we get good candidates who are running for office and that we support those candidates. And also they were saying that, there are some opportunities now. We've never had a Black woman governor. And there are probably about 6 so far that have announced that they are running for governor. And so that's an opportunity where maybe we could pick up some momentum there at the state level, as well as looking at state legislatures. How do we pick up more there? But just in trying to wrap this up, that there is a concern that we have the most diverse Congress we've ever had. And we have more Black women there as well as more Black men. But there's a concern that we didn't get as much done in this legislature. And so they want to look at how do we increase the numbers, or how do we get the people who are there voting on the women's issues so that we can have more wins in that area.
Muted, Jocelyn.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Dr. Scott, for that. Dr. Weaver, let me turn to you. Now, if there's one thing for sure that happened during this pandemic, is that it laid bare the intersection of racial and gender biases and inequalities targeting Black women. Can you give us a snapshot of what's in the report about the many facets of inequalities experienced by Black women?
Sure. I think one of the areas there are several areas that come to mind. One, when it deals with the economy, we know that Black women face a disproportionate impact as it relates to unemployment over the period of the first 2 years of the pandemic. It's really kind of interesting when you think about the fact that we continue to lead all women as it relates to labor force participation. So the pandemic did not change that dynamic. But when we looked at the proportion who experienced unemployment, it went down pretty significantly, about 2.6% between February of 2020 and January of 2022. And that's the largest decrease that we've had among all Black people, white people, or Latinos. So Black women were especially negatively impacted when it comes to job losses during the pandemic. But when it comes to when you come about this issue, talk about this issue of inequality, generally speaking, specifically with the economy, Black women continue to face, for example, a double wage gap. And that's something that this report calls for that we not only examine in terms of and act on in terms of correcting, but also correcting Black women's access to those wraparound needs that all workers need to have in order to have not only better wages, but a better job quality experience, access to healthcare, access to better control of their schedules. We tend to be lumped in jobs that are not only low wage jobs, but are also jobs that allow us a little freedom with regards to being able to, take care of our families and ourselves when we need it. So those are a couple of spaces. I think another space that kind of is top of mind for me is this issue of environmental justice. We laid out in the report the degree to which Black women and families are disproportionately impacted by, unfortunately, living near places that are known to be toxic, literally. And so I could probably go on and on and on because there are a lot of disparities that we face. But the challenges that we faced historically and continue to face, I am happy to say, is not anything that is stopping Black women from achieving, from working for more, from ascending, from doing all those things that we have to do in order to not only make a way for ourselves, but make a way for our families and our entire communities.
Thanks so much, Avis. And I'd like to ask each of you, if you could just give me some top lines from the report that you found that Black women can take away and use.
Who do you want to go first? You want Avis?
You can go first, Elsie.
Okay. One of the top lines that struck me in one of the essays, the writer wrote about Black women's role in foreign affairs. And that's something we have not covered before. And there was this whole celebration that we have a Black woman vice president who is prominent on the international scene and helping and leading the foreign policy efforts. And backing her up, being the supportive cast, is that we have the UN ambassador, who's a Black woman. So I think this was one of the things that struck me that I had not seen in earlier reports, that we had not talked about the Black woman's involvement in foreign affairs.
Okay, thank you so much. Avis.
Completely agree. I think that one of the areas that I think was very interesting with this report that we haven't sort of delved into before was giving BWR a little bit of a toot on, in terms of good things that BWR is doing. I was really impressed to read about the research that BWR had done specifically around Black women's involvement in clinical trials, in whether or not they have received their COVID-19 vaccine, whether or not they've received their flu vaccines. And so we were really able to get the perspectives of Black women when it comes to these very critical health issues. And it really highlighted the degree to which Black women in those trials actually were calling for more, or in that study, were actually calling for more information specific to Black women as it relates to vaccine testing, to access to trials and really feeling comfortable with participating in those things. We know that generally speaking, Black people writ large, for example, are underrepresented when it comes to clinical trials. And that's one of the reasons why oftentimes when drugs are approved, that we really don't have a lot of data on how it impacts the Black community in general. And so it was interesting seeing that Black women are aware of that, they're cognizant of that, and they want to make sure that we have more representation both in those trials, but also that that information is disseminated to the Black community to help people feel more comfortable taking advantage of potentially life-saving drugs, like, for example, the COVID-19 vaccine, and making sure that people take advantage of all that's out there for them with regards to those health needs.
Thanks so much. Dr. Weaver, let me stay with you for just a second. Let's talk about education for a second, and then we're going to open it up so that the media can ask questions. What are Black women in this report saying about issues affecting education?
Right. Well, on two divergent stories here. On the one end, I think that there is some good news to share about the degree to which HBCUs have seen increased funding in recent years. And that's something that obviously HBCUs need and have been denied for so long. So there's a lot of information in there about the degree to which HBCUs are receiving greater funding from a variety of different sources, including the federal government as well as private industry, and how that relates to making sure that Black students who come out of those institutions and are targeted in professions that help us all are able to thrive. But on the other end of the spectrum, there is a strong piece, if I say so myself, in the report around this whole war against critical race theory. And I think that's an important examination, because that impacts our children's ability to see themselves in school, to be able to read literature that impacts their lives and reflects their experiences, that has our history accurately recounted, and that prioritizes the feeling of our children and the lived experiences of our children just as much as what is being prioritized now in a lot of these laws that are going around the nation that are attacking quote unquote critical race theory. So we uncovered there that some 38 states across the nation have put in place, or at least sought to pass bills, and many of these have actually passed into law, that are attacking critical race theory. But the reality is that what it's attacking is not really critical race theory. As someone personally who is very familiar with critical race theory, having been introduced to it as an advanced graduate student, I know what it is and I know what it's not. And the popular narrative around what it is really a political ploy to be able to attack truth-telling in our public school system, which we believe is very detrimental to the full educational enlightenment of not only our children, but of all children in America. We know that there's been a very well-funded and a very well-coordinated attack against what has been pigeonholed as critical race theory. And what we're calling for here is a counter to that. There really has not been a response on the other side to not only protect truth-telling in curricula, but also to be able to make sure that our school boards are not overrun with individuals who seek to sort of strip away a full telling of who we are, as well as a full telling of understanding of how to be able to provide educational enlightenment to our children, that at the same time that actually elevates the needs and experiences of all children, and not one that specifically prioritizes quote unquote feelings of just a certain subset of children, rather than making sure that all children have access to the history, to the books that have been banned, and to the information that they need to be able to have critical thinking skills developed and a full understanding of what we are now as a nation, as well as what we have been as a nation.
Thank you so much. Let me go back to you, Dr. Scott. With regard to our nation's judicial system, we've witnessed history this month as the first Black woman, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, was nominated and sat for confirmation hearings to be considered as a justice for the Supreme Court of the United States. Historic moment for the nation. But in contrast to this historic judicial first, we continue to witness how justice and policing in this nation is meted out unfairly to Black people, which far too many times ends in the death of Black people. How does this report address these two issues?
Well, it is very clear in the report that one of the things that Black women are most happy about is that President Biden fulfilled his campaign promise to appoint a Black woman to the Supreme Court. So there's nothing but celebration there. But as you said, that when we dug into looking at the criminal justice system, there's not much to celebrate there. And there are a lot of challenges for the future, as outlined by our authors, that there was a great expectation that the George Floyd Policing Act was going to pass. It passed in the House, but got stalled in the Senate. And that was interesting because there had been a lot of bipartisanship around criminal justice issues in the Senate, but it did not pass. And so our authors are saying that we cannot get discouraged around the failure to see much change in the criminal justice system. In fact, one of our authors really talked about the need to have a comprehensive reform in the criminal justice system and to recognize that the criminal justice system is primarily state and local government. And so we should not be putting all our eggs in one basket trying to get federal legislation. When we pass the federal legislation, we'll still have to deal with a lot of state laws and local police departments and police unions that would be stymieing us. So there was a recommendation that we really need to focus on how do we come up with a plan for reforming the whole criminal justice system. And that's what we should be looking at in the future, because it will continue to disproportionately affect us in negative ways.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Scott. Do we have any questions from the media right now? Okay, if not, let me ask you another question, Dr. Weaver. The pandemic is still affecting everyone's life in some way. What are Black women saying in the report about how this pandemic is specifically impacting the lives of Black women?
It has impacted us disproportionately, just in terms of the fact that Black women were especially likely to be lumped in jobs that were deemed essential. So they were more likely than others to have to put their bodies on the line, literally, during a worldwide pandemic. And what we've seen as a result is it not only impacted those specific workers, it impacted their families when they came home, right? So there was a greater chance of exposure. It is true that Black people had a little bit of a disproportionate impact as it relates to being exposed to COVID-19. We also, though, had some very personal stories that were shared as part of this report to talk about what it was really like to have to sort of navigate that challenge and what that really means for individuals and families who are having to take a step back, either because of health reasons or because they had to, they were impacted because of their sort of job transitions or not having a job anymore as a result of the economic fallout from the pandemic. So there are several different ways in which Black women and families were impacted. And I would say they have been health-wise, they have been as well as financially. Black families and communities are still trying to sort of rebound from this pandemic that in many ways continues to morph and looks like now we have to figure out how to live with it over the long term.
Thank you so much, Dr. Scott, Dr. DeWeaver. Look for more information. Our report is out. There is a link to it at ncbcp.org, where you can read the entire report. I want to thank you both ladies for sharing, for working on this publication again. It's been wonderful working with you. And Melanie, I'm going to turn it back over to you for our next panel.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you for being our illustrious moderator for this rollout. There's so much in this report and such brilliance in this report. I'm just elated. Every year it gets better and better. And thank you for your role in helping to be part of the editing team. And of course, our sister sisters, Dr. Elsie and Dr. Avis. We appreciate y'all so very, very much. And we have more to come. We will be doing a series of power table talks around the report so we can bring in the authors of the essays to really have a conversation. So this will be a living document. And if you are watching and want to get the report, please go to our website at ncbcp.org. If you Google Black Women's Roundtable report, I think it'll pop up. So thank you so very much. We're going to take about a 5-minute break then we'll start back at about 2:05 for our second panel today, which is about the nomination and confirmation process. Where are we? What's been going on? What do we need to do? Is there anything else we need to do to make sure we help to get her across the finish line? And that's Judge Tanji Brown Jackson. So stay tuned and join us in about 5 more minutes. Thank you. Thanks, ladies. Hey, Janae.
Hey, I'm on.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to start in a sec.
Okay, just tell me
Okay.
real quick.
Hey, no.
Melanie, can you hear me?
Started with our second panel. I see we're coming aboard. Hi, ladies, how are you doing? I'm actually going to serve as your moderator. I will tell you, thank you. This is exciting. It's been an exciting day. Ladies, I'm so excited. I lost my voice. Did not know I would end up having to be moderator. Hopefully our moderator will make it. Waiting to see if she'll make it. But in the meantime, we know time is of the essence. And I know a lot of you all have really tight schedules. So we're going to get started with our panel. So thank you all for joining us. Oh, isn't this week a lot better? Thank the audience out there for watching. Thank you, Roland Martin Unfiltered, for being our partner, our brother in this fight, and helping us bring the great information. So we're on panel number 2. Ladies, we just finished releasing our report, our annual report. And so some of you all are authors in that again this year. We thank you so very much. But we're going to get right up to starting with our panel. So for the audience that's just joining us on Facebook, we are discussing an update and an analysis on Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's confirmation process and the next steps. What has to happen next? So ladies, I want to introduce those of you all who I see. You're no stranger to me, of course, and many others out there watching. So I see our sister Janae Nelson, and we want to give her a big wave and excitement, drum roll, as the not new to the movement or LDF, but new in her role as the new president and director counsel for the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Thank you so much, Janae, for joining us. I see our sister, Bishop Leah Daughtry, coming on, looking gorgeous as always, who's founder and CEO of Power Rising and is our faith leader and so much more. We are so glad you were able to join us. I see our sister Holly Holiday, Esquire, president of Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, of which I am honored to be a chair of that board. I don't have to work hard because Holly does all the work. I just, whenever she needs me, she call me. Then I have our sister Jocelyn Fry, who is the president and kind of new, right? President of the National Partnership for Women and Families. And many of us on this call are also part of this new buzz thing called the Black Women's Leadership Collective. So I know we got more to do today. So ladies, I'm gonna jump right in and be our host and be a host that doesn't talk too much. So first question is, ladies, what do you feel the impending confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson's to the U.S. Supreme Court represents for Black women and women overall in this country? And on a personal note, what does it truly mean for you? And I feel like I got to start with Bishop. Bishop, you right there in the center, I'm going to you.
Good afternoon, sisters. It's always good to be in space with sister warriors, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Melanie, for the invitation. You know, this is, I think, a singular moment for us. It is a historic moment, and I feel that we are so privileged to live in this time where we get to be part of this kind of historic confirmation. It's just magical in many ways. I think for us as Black women, it is both symbol and substance, right? There's the substance of having a Black woman and the lived experience. We've been saying that phrase over and over these past several weeks, the lived experience of a Black woman on the court, something that has never existed in the court's 233-year history, and having someone who can speak to our concerns or even just to bring our lens to the issues is tremendously important. And of course, it's important as a symbol. I am happily child-free, but I do have a 5-year-old niece, and just her growing up in an era where she will grow up assuming that there is a place for her on the court because she can see it. And I think that's tremendously powerful for our little girls and our little boys to know, to have the expectation that the court there's someone on the court that looks like them, that has their experience, and that can speak to their issues and make sure that they're represented. It's really powerful and historic.
Thank you, Leah. Janae.
Thank you. Good afternoon. It is wonderful to be in fellowship with these amazing sisters. And thank you for that wonderful shout out, Melanie. You and I have been seeing each other so much these past few weeks because the work is intense and we are in the final stretch, but it ain't over till it's over. So we cannot take our feet off the gas. We've got to keep the pressure on. We got to keep the joy high, and we have to keep the awareness as acute as ever. And so your question about what this means to us and to me personally, this means that a glass ceiling that has been there for Black women for 223 years is finally about to be broken. And that is a watershed moment in the history of this country. It is a signal to all young Black girls and boys and others in this country who have been historically marginalized that we can break through the obstacles, the barriers, and all of the impediments that are placed in our way to get to the places that we deserve to be at, to help determine our own futures. And to be a Supreme Court justice is to have an incredibly powerful position of leadership in this country. And the fact that a Black woman has not occupied that position ever has done our entire democracy a disservice. Black women bring such a unique perspective to everything that they do. And I think our country will have an opportunity to finally see the full intellect and glory of Black women in this modern age. We've had Black women federal judges before, like Constance Baker Motley, who's a former LDF attorney. We've had a Black Supreme Court Justice, Thurgood Marshall, who was our founder, but we've never had a Black woman Supreme Court Justice. And I am so eager to see what she will do. And it means a lot to me as the president of an organization that produced these firsts. And I'm just delighted to be in support of this sister who is about to break another barrier.
Thank you, Sister Janae. Speaking of breaking barriers with this bad voice I have today, is another awesome sister who is just such a dynamic leader and mentor to so many of us, and really is just a powerhouse and just an awesome sister spirit. And I know she has to jump on and come right back off. And we have joining us today is our sister leader, Mignon Moore, who took some time away from her part of her role with her career to serve. She always serving, but she went back into that White House. And for those of y'all who've been in the White House, y'all know what that means. And so she's able to join us to just give us some updates from what she can share with us from the White House. She is the nomination advisor for engagement with the White House in helping to navigate the nomination and confirmation process for Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. So Mignon, we know you have to jump on and off. And so we just thank you, turn the floor, share whatever you can share with our audience. And thank you so much for all that you do.
Well, let me just start by thanking all the women that are on, that I can see on this Zoom, but I'm sure there's many, many more. You know, I've always lived my life not as an island, but as a collective. And this Black Women's Collective has just been the joy of my existence while I've been in the White House. To see all the work that you all are doing and to know that Judge Jackson knows all the work that you're doing, it just really, I can't tell you, I just stay full. You know, yesterday was she's been on the Hill, and she's had several meetings since her hearings, her over 20 hours worth of hearings, and she's still meeting as many senators as she possibly can. You know, and I will be the first to admit some of the meetings have been met with, you know, some some pretty tough conversations, but as we saw, she has displayed this impeccable sense of discipline as it relates to not just her life, but to the life she chooses to lead. But during this process, I continue to ask you to continue to lift her up in joy, number one, which you all have been doing. Number two, make sure that you are watchful as we go past getting her out the hearings on Monday. We're hoping that we will have some Republicans at that hearing so that we can get her voted out of committee and to the floor. And that's when you'll probably start hearing 48 hours of speeches and speechifying, as we call it in the Black community. But, you know, the end of this week and next week will be pivotal. And she sees, you know, yesterday I took the time out during one of her breaks to send her stuff that you all have been doing. And she is so in love with the big ad that you all did on her behalf. And just to show her some of the articles, show her some of the women showing up at the Supreme Court, because that fuels her spirit and that it fuels us. And so she started reading some of them, because, you know, she's been virtually on a news blackout. But yesterday, after some of those meetings, we decided that we were going to pick her up and let her know that she is not in this alone. So I will tell you, if you don't believe anything that I am saying, believe that she knows that you are out there, that she represents you all, that you are fighting for her. She might not know every last name, but she knows that this collective is out here rooting for her, and she will not do anything to let you down. She doesn't want to let you down. And you're really the wind beneath her wings. And, you know, Leah will be joining us later, because we decided to do a big clergy call, because we're at that point now where we know that it's going to take something a little bit higher than us. And so we got to call on Leah, the bishop, and all the rest of the interfaith clergy to really just pray for her, keep speaking out loud, keep speaking out proud. And, you know, again, as a friend, as a sister who would normally be in this Zoom call with you all, doing what I'm doing what you're doing, you know, it's a little bit odd for me to be back on the inside. Jocelyn, you know very well, you can get more done on the outside than you can on the inside. But I feel like I've carried all of you all in the White House with me. And I will tell you, on behalf of the president and the vice president, they know for a fact that this would not be possible without you. And it's not hyperbole to me, because every time I go into a meeting, well, you know, the Sister Collective, they're doing this, and this. So I thank you again. I thank you, Kimberly, especially. You are such a precious soul we have gotten to know throughout this process. Your energy around this has just been completely beautiful. Leah and I were talking about you last night, and I just really want to personally thank you for your vision that you had around the Supreme Court justice. Melanie, you know, we can never say enough about you, ever. This girl is she carries us all. Her and Holly, they just do the thing. So I love you all. Keep praying for us. Keep doing what you're doing. Jocelyn, you keep educating them, because you know you done been here before. Keep telling them what to do. And listen, call on me anytime. I think I'm going to be joining you all tonight. Sister Holly reached out to me, so I'll see you tonight at 8:00. But I love you all so very, very much. And thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you, Mignon. We love you. We appreciate you more than we could ever express. And we can't wait to get you on the other side of the wall. We'll be out there waving.
All right. I love y'all much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And we have been joined by our sister, Kimberly Ticknor. Good to see you, Kimberly. Kimberly is the co-founder with She Will Rise. So I'm going to move right on. Go to Holly, then Jocelyn, and then Kimberly. I'm asking the first question of our illustrious sister panel is, and I'll repeat the question: what do you feel the impending confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson to the U.S. Supreme Court represents for Black women in this country and women overall? And what does it mean for you personally? So Holly, Jocelyn, Kimberly.
Well, I've answered this question. I feel like I need to get the tattoo. It is about representation. Representation matters. Oh my God. And that is also my joy and my excitement. As an attorney, as someone who's been in rooms, not the Supreme Court room, but rooms where you have to negotiate with other lawyers, I'm excited to have someone to bring the experience of having worked in the criminal justice system. I'm excited to have someone who brings the experience of working with disability rights and civil rights and human rights. That is what brings me joy. That is what keeps me going. And to know that those points of view, which represent so many Black women and so many women in general, finally get representation, I'm in for it.
Well, I will pick up where Holly left off. I agree wholeheartedly with, the joy and the excitement and, the long overdue need for representation. I will say also, it's an important example, not only for young people, but it's correcting a gap that is long overdue of fixing. Judge Jackson herself invoked the memory of Judge Motley, but the truth of the matter is that there are Black women who have been fully qualified to be on the Supreme Court, to be on our federal circuit, appellate courts, who have been overlooked or who have been stalled. And it is part of a longstanding pattern of denying access to the highest positions to Black women and more broadly women of color. And so much so that, we have almost normalized what should never have been normalized, right? The absence of Black women from the court is not normal. And we should have always understood that that was a grievous error. And the fact that the president is correcting it is wonderful. I'm excited, thrilled beyond belief. I bring that perspective of a Black woman attorney like many of us. And so seeing that hard work pay off with a seat on the court is something that is both inspiring and humbling, all of those things. But I also am excited about it because, she represents the hopes and dreams, not only of the future, but many of the people who were behind her, who should have been given those opportunities and weren't. I think that it is very much about, as she said, standing on the shoulders of many who fought hard so that she would have this opportunity. And I'm excited about it, thrilled for it. And, we will need to have her back every step of the way. Getting her in the court is the first step. But that's not the last step, and I'm thrilled about it. We should all take pride in it, but this is I think the beginning and not the end.
And I would say, so you, Jocelyn, you just alley-ooped me for this one. So this is perfect. And that is, so when we launched, I remember, so when we started, and we wanted to really build momentum and get folks, like people of color, excited about the promise that was made by Joe Biden in the Supreme Court in nominating the first Black woman. I remember multiple times being asked by our folks, does this woman even exist? Does this Black woman exist? And that is why, when we launched, soon after, we created a short list because we realized, yes, this woman, not only, there's a whole slate of sensational Black women that could step into this position right now. And so what I am most excited about is that I will never, ever, ever, ever be asked that question ever again. And not only will I not be asked that question, I'm going to, we will now and forever see slates of Black women, women of color, of diverse professional backgrounds that are going to be on our short list, and I think the other piece of it that has really struck me in this process and the history that we're all making together is that our girls are watching. Our girls are going to grow up in a world where they will never hear the question of, does that woman exist? And they see themselves now and forever on that court. And so those are the things that have meant the most to me in this process, in the history that we're all making together and supporting our sister, Judge, soon to be Justice, Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Thank you. Janae, I know you have to step away. So before you go, and then I'm going to come to you, April, right after. The ladies, and I know some of y'all have to come in and out, and we'll understand that. Just let me know. Just send me a little tickle and say, hey, you know my time. Janae, we know people keep talking about, the fact that, it won't matter because there's a 6-3 vote and she won't make a difference. But give us the time you have left. What does it really mean when it comes to civil rights, voting rights, issues of justice, and having her on there, and what that can mean for the short and the long term?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such an important point, because we can sit back and say, well, she's not going to change the balance on the court. It will still take, a majority of votes that we may not necessarily have. But we are doubting, when we say that, we are doubting the power of persuasion that any justice on the court might have. And I have no doubt that a Black woman with the rich experiences that she's had, with the ability that she has had to navigate so many different spaces, that she will not have an impact on at least some of her peers. And we have already seen that some of these justices are willing to do what's right under certain circumstances. And I think she has an opportunity to influence and shape their perspective with respect to a number of critical issues like voting rights, like criminal justice. She's going to be able to speak from a first-person experience about what it's like to represent indigent defendants, what it's like to have a family member who's incarcerated, what it's like to have a family member who's incarcerated alongside family members who are in law enforcement, what it's like to be a Black woman in America and experience what women and Black women experience at the intersection of those two identities. That is powerful. When we speak our truth, we persuade, we empower, we inform. And I have no doubt that she will do all of those things on the court. I mean, listen, the reality is what it is. We don't have a majority of progressives on the court. But I will also say this, we are not just looking at the court for today, we are building the court for tomorrow and the court for the next generation. And having her here now is planting a seed and holding space so that when the court does turn, we have the right number of justices there ready and waiting to do the right thing. And we have a body of work in her dissenting opinions, I would expect, in many issues that will actually show us the pathway forward on legal issues, so that when there is a majority that can take hold of that doctrine, can take hold of that analysis, they will have a running start because they will already have seen the pathway forward. And thank you all. I'm so sorry that I have to go, but I'm so appreciative of this discussion and to be in this struggle with all of you. It's amazing.
And thank you, Janae. April Ferret from way over in California.
Hey there,
who
Miss
joined
Melanie.
us. Thank you. And I want to introduce you properly. April is President SEIU Local 2015 for the state of California, and also International Vice President for the Service Employees International Union. And so, April, we ask all of our illustrious sisters here to say, what does this mean to you, the impending confirmation of Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, what that represents for Black women, what it means also personally for you. Then I'm gonna come right back and I'm gonna tee up a question to you and then to Bishop Leah about what does this mean when it comes to issues of justice and other kinds of things. So Leah, I'm gonna tee you up to come after Sister April.
Well, thanks so much, Melanie. And as always, thank you all for setting the table for us to have real conversations that impact our people. You know, dare I say, this just means everything. And it is so validating and affirming to see a strong Black woman in the fullness of who she is, and I believe who we are, right? She is not just intelligent. Does not just have a keen legal mind, which we saw on display throughout her career, but also at that hearing. But what really impacted me is that we saw her be vulnerable, right? The fact that she could sit there and be incredibly bold and smart, but she could be loving, and she could center her love of God, her family, her love of this country, and that is just as important to who she is and what she brings to this court as her ability to dissect legal doctrine. And so I think she, again, represents the fullness of who we are. She's a mother, she's a judge, she's a daughter, she's a friend. Because we are not just one thing, right? We exist to be many things at once. And I think having someone who's able to display that for the world to see is going to be an incredibly important voice on this high court. And just for me, seeing her weep, right? Like being allowed to show that I am human and I have emotions and that I am impacted by this, I think is affirmation for all of us. And that is just as important for our girls and our boys to see as anything.
Thank you. And so we're going to come right back to you and to Sister Leah. I was asking the question with Janae Nelson. And because what's really at stake with this nomination, what it could do in the short and the long run around issues of workers' rights, around issues of how this impacts our ability for all of our freedoms, freedom of religion, all the things that we know are constitutional rights, women's rights, so many things that are tied to that. And just want to get your perspective on that and what's really at stake for us in that regard, and how important to have this sister be on that court and what that means. Is to say that the race is not all, I'm blanking on what I was about to say on that, but short, long race. This is a long race, but we also have the immediacy of the hour, the immediacy of the moment, and people are looking for hope. And there was a time we could go to the Supreme Court, right? But that has not what we found ourselves standing outside that courthouse door, Holly, right? And looking at that place, and we don't see no justice. Yeah. So workers' rights, other issues of freedom, and our constitutional rights. And then I'm coming and Jocelyn and Kimberly, y'all, and Holly, I'm asking y'all the same question. Now, what's at stake so that we understand, like, not just the hope of the moment, the history of the moment, but there's real stuff that impacts us, our lives every day, that building can make it for the good or for the not so good. So April, Leah, and then I'm coming in. Oh, Kim, I'm sorry, Kim. I thought I didn't say your name too. The three of you all, I'm coming in.
Sure. Look, we have talked, there are things that we know, voting rights, gerrymandering, and how the district lines are being drawn. A woman's right to choose, right? We know that Roe, in essence, is in front of the court right now. All of those big issues are important, but we don't talk a lot about workers' rights. And the fact that we have seen the Supreme Court in recent years roll back, right? Hard fought wins that the labor movement, it took us decades to acquire. And we saw with a swipe of a pen, the Supreme Court in the Janus case a couple of years ago, basically nullify closed union shops for public sector workers. And many believe that the next time the court gets an opportunity, we could lose some really strong, important worker protections, and that the entire country could become right to work with the swipe of a pen. And we all know that in the labor movement, we say right to work is a right to work for less. And the fact that for our communities, we don't talk a lot about the fact that the Black middle class was built on public sector union jobs, that if it was not for our parents and grandparents being able to be school teachers with the union and postal workers with the union and bus drivers with the union, so many of us would not have been able to achieve some of the success that we have achieved. And so I do think it's really important that we think about workers' rights and the cases that are coming before the court. And it's really great that Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson has always been a staunch ally. We have looked at her decisions, and she has stood up and she has sided in her decisions on the side of workers. And so we know she'll be a strong advocate for, we hope, right? Because I do think she's going to be a fair and balanced judge. We hope that she will be a strong voice for workers on the court. Really, really important as we seek to end poverty and continue to make inroads for our people into the middle class.
Thank you. I got a quick question, and Leah, maybe you could answer, or anyone that's heard it. Lauren Burke, our awesome sister journalist, is on here. She asked a question. Are y'all hearing this about the rumor that McConnell may try and delay her vote until after Easter recess? She's with Black Press USA. I had not heard that, but I want to see if anybody else had heard that.
I had heard that 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I don't think that he has the power to do that. Under the Senate rules, I believe that Leader Schumer has the power and the authority for these kinds of nominations to move it to a vote. So that was a rumor a little while ago, but I don't know that McConnell can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Particularly now, since we know he does not. He's lost one, so he doesn't even have 50 on his side. So I would imagine that they will move this along pretty quickly. Friday, even next Friday. I mean, for Mel, for the question that you asked earlier, when I think about, you talked about how we don't see justice, we don't even hear justice right now. God bless Sonia Sotomayor, who's like a lone voice crying in the wilderness. And so she's got some help coming, but, we don't even hear our issues being discussed and our concerns being raised. And I think that's one of the things that Judge Jackson will bring to the court, is a centering of the issues that concern us. I often remind, when people say, well, why does the court matter? I often remind them that the voting rights situation we're in right now is mainly as a result of Shelby v. Holder. When the Supreme Court's decision rolled back the protections for those jurisdictions that previously had to do pre-clearance. They previously had to, if they wanted to change their rules, they had to get permission from the Justice Department, and the Supreme Court decided that that was no longer necessary, which put into effect all the mechanisms that we've seen of late that allow Texas to remove ballot boxes, that allow Georgia to pass rules that say they can just take election officials out that they don't like. These sorts of things that would have normally been protected under the Voting Rights Act of 1965 got swiped out by the Supreme Court. And so having someone there, and again, to your point, she's not going to be in the majority right now, but she can still raise the issues and create powerful points of dissent. And remember how old she is. She's just a little over 50, I think. She's going to be on this court a long, long time. And we know that sometimes the wheels of justice roll slowly, but they go finally. And so eventually she will be in the majority on the court if we do our work. If we do our work and elect people who will ensure that we have Supreme Court justices that reflect who we are and what our concerns are. I often think scripturally in this moment, I hearken to the scripture that says, whom shall I send and who will go for us? And there the prophet says, here am I, Lord, send me. And she is that person that has stood and is standing at that table. She stood at that table for us. She stood in for us, And she says, I'll go. I will brave the gauntlet. I will deal with the shenanigan squad and their crazy, racist, sexist questions. I'm standing here, but as Maya Angelou said, I stand as one, I go as one, but I stand as 10,000. There were thousands of us behind her who were saying, I've been there, sis. I got you, sis. I recognize this situation and I know you're there for us. I went to the hearings and I didn't care if she didn't know I was there. I didn't care if she didn't hear me. I was sitting behind Mel and we were like, what in the whole heaven and hell is happening here with Ted Cruz? And but it mattered to me that I was sitting behind her and figuratively, at least, I had her back. And I wanted her to know I had her back. So I think this is a critical moment for all of the issues: voting rights, reproductive rights, workers' rights, gerrymandering, redistricting. And while she might not be in a majority right now, there will come a day where her dissents will be important parts of American history, and where she will be in the majority, and and maybe one day even Chief Justice, and she will be the one standing again for us, braving the gauntlet around the issues that we care about. Say amen, somebody.
Amen.
Say amen.
Oh, it's over in the chat. Amen, amen. Holly, Jocelyn, Kim.
I always go to what it means to the people. I remember when we started Sisters Lead, Sisters Vote, a big part of it was politically, we were just tired of walking into spaces and rooms and having decisions made, and we just weren't there. And we needed to be a lot more aggressive about that. And the Supreme Court certainly represents one of those spaces where we just weren't in the room. We just weren't able to be a part of those conversations. And, all of us know how important it is to be in the room at the table, and in this case, on the bench, to be able to make and be a part of that decision-making process. And so for me, that's really where it ends. I am from Missouri proudly, and unfortunately, so much has happened around cases in and around Missouri. We are the proud home of the longest ever desegregation case, more than 20 years of school desegregation. We already know about Brown v. Board of Education in our neighbor state of Kansas. And I can go on and on and on. So when people talk about what this means, to me, I mean, I can even go back to the Missouri Compromise if you really want to get started. So when I say that the Supreme Court has had an impact on my life even before my life was thought of, and will have an impact on my life even well after my life is gone, it's important to me for future generations and for all the times that we've had decisions made for us without us, that we are in this moment.
It's hard to follow Holly and Reverend Daughtry, but I will pick up where they left off, and I couldn't agree more. I think in many ways, one of the most important roles that she will have on the court is simply just bringing her full self to the court. It is harder for people to say things about you, do things to you and your community, to mischaracterize and caricature you when you're sitting right there. There's so many decisions. I think of, reproductive rights, voting, workers' rights, all of them that often move forward with assumptions about Black women, about women of color, people of color, that are inaccurate and go unchallenged, in part because they can. And so I think that it is, she will bring her intellect, but she will also bring her humanity. She will bring, her full attitudes, her knowledge about her own experiences. She will be able to push back when, a justice on the court says, it's not a problem if a woman has to have a baby. She'll just put it up for adoption. Even though the people most affected by that attitude are disproportionately low-income women of color. She can push back against that. So I think that her presence will be powerful. And I think the other piece of it is that she, even if she's in the dissent, she has autonomy to say what she thinks. And so she is not bound by, other people's opinions. She will be a powerful voice, whether it's in the dissent, although I agree with Janae that she will have the power of persuasion. And I truly believe that she also can persuade people. I agree fully with April about her point about workers' rights. I think that role is so critical. And what I would say about that is that we have seen both a bold erosion, but also a subtle erosion of the ability of folks to come to the court and ask courts to ensure that they have the protections that we all think should be there. They are tightening things like when you're retaliated against in the workplace. It's harder to bring those cases. Affirmative action is coming before the court. All of the things that many of us have fought hard for to ensure equity, equal opportunity, access to opportunity are under a consistent, calculated, intentional attack. And sometimes those are very public and sometimes they're very technical. But what I am most excited about is that her brilliance will see through all of that. and that it is important to have that voice and be able to articulate those attacks, whether or not we're successful in holding them back, at least helping to shape and sometimes limit their scope and impact is really important. So I think she's going to be enormously impactful across all of our issues.
Thank you, Kim.
And I love
And
that.
then we're gonna bring on Kim Fatima next. Go ahead, Kim. Sorry, y'all, for my voice.
I would say that for me, so, the judiciary is a unique branch, right? It's the one branch where the folks that are in power are put in place. They're not voted there. They are placed there. They are nominated and then confirmed. And so it's unique in that the trust of the people must be earned, right? You have to earn our trust in an equitable outcome. And diversity is key to that. And we have watched over the last, the past 4 years, this former administration, we watched a very intentional, a very deliberate erosion in the integrity of the branch of that government. And with this nomination and with this moment and with Ketanji Brown Jackson, this is a major step in renewing, in rebuilding our faith in the integrity of the federal judiciary. And not just, and then let's talk about the history that we're making on the lower courts as well, and all of the historic nominations that this administration has been making. And again, renewing our people's faith in this unique, important branch of government. I would say also, in talking about a dissent and the importance of dissents, right? Not only as far as thinking about long games and seeing the path forward for a future. Yes, they're critically important for that. But I remember one of Justice Sotomayor's 2016 decisions, it was an early decision, where she cited in her dissent, Black Lives Matter. And this is before, everybody else. This is before it was pop culture. This was before everyone else is having their little Black Lives Matter banners or whatever. This is in the early ages of that movement. And she wrote it into her dissent. She wrote it into history. And I remember feeling seen and feeling acknowledged and feeling as if my voice and my people were indeed in that building, which so often feels so far away and so out of touch. And my last point is building on Jocelyn about her bringing her full self and her personality and her attitude and her sisterhood. Can I tell y'all, the first time I see Justice Sotomayor and soon to be Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson make a sister side eye on that, I will squeal with joy. Okay, I'm waiting for that moment, and so and because it will make me feel like I was in that room, and that it is not 9 justices locked away in a tower that does not understand my day-to-day life, the day-to-day life of my family or my community. And so that is what this moment and what the importance of this means.
Hey, thank you, Kim. I know Leah had to pray me from getting thrown out of that room. She did a great job. It was hard to watch and understand the dynamics of it all and the weight of it all. And you, Leah, and everyone saying it just was so important to stand there. So I wanted to come back to that point you made a little earlier, just thinking about that as we're talking about all the weight of the issues, that how in his lifetime and how long enough to know that stuff can last a lifetime, bad decisions, right? So we've been joined by another dynamic, awesome sister in the movement, our sister Fatima Graves, president of the National Women's Law Center. I know you're in the middle of some meetings, so I'm glad you're able to join us for this dynamic conversation with this Black Women's Leadership Collective. And so we are excited to have you here. What we've asked folks to combine a question so you can get it into, want to hear what it means to you personally, right? But also knowing that whether it's a 6-3, whatever it is right now, what it means to the issues. We've talked a lot about issues of how it impacts civil rights and women's rights and workers' rights, and other kind of issues that this core education, so many things that we've been discussing. But I know from the person you sit with the National Women's Law Center, and you've been on this a long time in your role, even before that, to just give us your perspective about that. And then we'll come to the group with maybe 2 more questions, and we're not gonna hold you just to hold you. We're going through these questions, and we'll see.
Oh, well, I'm so glad to see all of you, and I was glad to see some of you in the room, because I have to say it was hard to sit there and watch it, as you all said, but it was harder to not watch. I just felt like she was there, and we all needed to be a force of protection around her. And what I realized, and this has felt so personal to me, and I thought at first that it was, because I'm a lawyer, but then I realized, no, not at all. It was a Black woman sitting there, and the way in which she had to be so still and so excellent and at the top of her game for hours and hours on in the face of ridiculousness. I think it brought all of us to different moments over time. And I wanted better for her. I wanted joy for her. I wanted all to be a celebration of this moment. And I was, I found myself mad that how dare someone try to interrupt what is really, I felt like the gift of history for the country. This country should be saying, thank you, Judge Jackson, for going through this, because it will make us a better country. And so, but we will be there, I believe strongly, in a week. And that is keeping me going. And also, I just want to say a thing about dissents. I heard you guys talking about dissents, and I just, I think dissents matter. I think they help guide how we understand the decision, how we understand what is at stake. They are the call to action for people in the street and the call to action for the policy forward. And what has been occurring to me, and I'm not sure why it took so long, but that we're about to go into a new phase where the dissenters gathering are going to be all women. And I think that could change the tone and tenor of what that dissent looks like and how the public understands it. What does it mean that you have a Supreme Court where it is always, or most often always, 3 women together saying, what the hell are you doing here? So I'm looking forward to us understanding that and then helping the public make meaning of it. And then just on Judge Jackson's record and on so many different issues, we did a deep dive into her record, the range of types of cases that she has had that give us really great confidence that she will be a judge that makes us all proud, a judge that understands these core principles in our Constitution that we all hold value, but maybe feel really fragile right now. But actually looking at her record and the care that she takes, whether it is a criminal case or a case involving health or a case involving disability law or a case involving labor laws, the care that she takes and the way in which she brings the humans that are usually involved into the decision, that matters. It is not, these aren't just like academic ideas and theoretical debates about the law. These are people's lives. And I think she will be grounded in that. And that will make the court better too.
Thank you. Thank you. I believe I see Sister Donna Brazile is bring her on over to tech team. I think I see her name. Next, ladies, we've been talking about the hearings, right? And how it impacted. And these will be, I'm going to do like quicker answers so we can get, but what do you think the American people learned from watching those hearings last week? And whoever would like to answer that.
You know, Melanie, I think that we learned that we need to learn more. I don't think that, and someone said this earlier, I think that the average American voter does not pay a lot of attention, you know, to what is happening on the Supreme Court. And I hope that it gave us a window into a piece of our government that is really, really important. And that we will start paying attention, that we will start looking out for decisions, you know, that she weighs in on, for her, you know, briefs of dissent. And that hopefully it gives us an opportunity to really do deep education into why this court is important and how it is connected to how we vote and who we vote for. So it gives me hope that we are entering an era where we really can become more engaged around the work of the court.
Thank you. And we have now been joined by last, but certainly not least, our sister Donna Brazile, who is, oh my gosh, of course she runs her own firm, but she's a professor, she's an author, she's a political strategist. She ran a presidential campaign, so many things, and she's our sister in this collective. And so Donna Brazile, on behalf of the Black Women's Roundtable, and I say on behalf of the Black Women's Leadership Collective, so as a whole, we are so delighted to have you join us today. We're on the last end of the panel, and we ask, and I still like for you, we were talking about what the American people learned. We were also sharing the concerns about and what the issues are that this court, this whole Supreme Court, what are the concerns, the issues. But then we also had the personal question, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to have this Black woman, this just a couple more steps away from breaking this glass ceiling? And anything else you'd like to share with us, Tom?
Thank you, Melanie, for your extraordinary leadership. And I want to say to all of the panelists, it's a great honor to join you all this afternoon. I've been listening to the conversation, and it's been quite an incredible experience, I think, for all of us. For me personally, I think about that moment back in 1993 when then Vernon Jordan and Eleanor Holmes Norton went to Bill Clinton to ask for senatorial courtesy. Senatorial courtesy would allow DC and the DC delegate to have the same responsibilities of a United States senator to submit names of qualified candidates for judicial vacancies on the U.S. District Court. Of course, the U.S. Marshal's Office. Zora always want to get on the call whenever she hears this Black women. Forgive me, y'all. My dog thinks she's a Black woman. Zora, welcome. And also the U.S. Attorney. And Congresswoman Norton went about the the job of putting together a judicial nominating commission. And as her chief of staff, I was tasked with the responsibility of setting this commission up. Over the years, Eleanor has submitted so many qualified people from all different backgrounds. The first Asian American, the first Hispanic American, and of course, Eleanor submitted Judge Jackson's name then on the Sentencing Commission to serve. At that time, she was Miss Jackson, but clearly she was an outstanding lawyer. And as you all know, she received unanimous support in 2013. Unanimous support when she was on the Sentencing Commission and bipartisan support last year. So to see this come full circle, it has been an amazing, incredible experience. And I have no regrets, and Leah knows this, and Kim knows this, my neighbor Kim. I have no regrets for my living room and my house looking like confirmed Judge Jackson campaign headquarters. This has been truly a remarkable time in our lives for a very special, uniquely qualified, extraordinary person with an extraordinary American story. And the part for me, when I was standing on the steps of the Supreme Court with all of you just a week ago, I kept thinking, here I was, Al Gore's campaign manager in 2000. And as you all know, the Supreme Court stopped the count, stopped the vote count. And next week, we have the opportunity to put on the Supreme Court a daughter from the great state of Florida. So for me, it shows you how God worked. And yes, I hope this has been a teachable moment for the country. First of all, we have three branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the courts, the judicial. And it's very important that we put people of color, Black women in particular, and others on the court. And now that we're on the verge of shattering once again another glass ceiling, I hope we come away from this experience knowing that we still have work to do. One is not enough. And I agree with my sister Graves, who put out, she said, essentially, there will be three women in a dissent. You're right, those dissenting opinions matter. Just having her voice in the conversation on all these important weighty issues. So I'm excited. We have another week to go. We need to continue to, as Senator Booker reminded us last week, to drown out the noise, to make sure that we continue to amplify the joy, amplify the fact that she is qualified. I'll leave it to you lawyers to figure out how to respond to some of the nonsense, like her judicial philosophy, when there are over 577 cases. She has submitted tens of thousands of pages of her work on the Sentencing Commission. They're still fishing for something they can't find. And as someone who understands how to fish with real bait, I would say, let it go. Let it go. This is a moment. The polls have already demonstrated that the American people, by a huge margin, over 2/3 of the American people support this nomination, in large part because they had an opportunity to watch the hearings or see the clippings or receive some message about her. So let's go ahead and just complete this task, knowing that we have more work to do. But I'm so honored to have been a part of this process, Melanie, to be in the company of so many remarkable sisters. And let's not forget, on April 4th, it's a solemn day, the death of Martin Luther King, the anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, but it's also the birth of Maya Angelou. And may we use that day when she will be confirmed out of the committee, or I don't know if that's the right term, Leah, but when she comes out of that committee, let us rejoice and remind people we will rise. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
I want to just coming back after Donna. One thing I hope the American people saw is how low the bar is for leadership.
Yes. One quick question, Bishop. I know Fatima's in a board meeting. Did you have anything else before you step away, sis?
No, +1 to everything that they have just said, and
What
get
do
ready
people need to
next
do
week,
this week?
drown
What do
it
people need to
out.
do?
I agree with you. We set the tone in the conversation and the narrative of how people should receive it, don't let them do it. So.
Amen.
Donna, back to you, Bishop.
I was just going to say, as you watched the hearings last week and saw some of the foolishness from the shenanigan squad, as I call them, I hope the American people, and I think they have, if Senator Grassley's town hall meeting is any indication, people were annoyed, upset, pissed off by the meanness and the shallowness that they saw from the shenanigan squad. And what I hope some of our people watching took away was, I can do better than this. Let me run for office. Let me throw my hat in the ring. Let me demonstrate what leadership should look like and can look like. Because if these people, is this what the United States Senate is supposed to look like? Oh no, I can do better than this in my sleep, in my heels, dancing backwards. So let me step up to the leadership line and offer my skills and my talent and my experience.
And I hope that we expect more of what we saw during those hearings as, election season, gets up and running, because that was less about Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson and more about elections, right? And what people are planning, I believe, for 24. They're going to continue to try to go after critical race theory. They're going to continue to use their bullhorn. It's not even a dog whistle about crime and safety. The crazy QAnon conspiracy, which is what all of this child pornography and predator stuff was about. They have a plan and they have a strategy, and that was them, stepping into it, I believe. And we have to be prepared and to brace ourselves for more of that foolishness and be able to take it on.
Thank you.
Well, and piggybacking on that, because I couldn't agree more with both of what both of you said. But I also think that I hope what people saw is the brilliance and intellect of a Black woman judge, fully capable of being on the court. I think for years we have operated in an environment where people have tried to rationalize our absence as if, people weren't qualified, or people, we're just waiting for the right person. And I think people, finally, had the opportunity to pay attention and see for themselves that narrative was never true. And all you had to do was listen to her for 5 minutes and appreciate the competence and brilliance that she brought to the table. And so I think the pushback, it was important for her to be part of that pushback, that narrative that justifies, and as I said earlier, normalizes the absence of Black women, of people of color, from spaces where they deserve to be. I think the other thing that hopefully people saw, and picking up on where April was, is that I think it was remarkable that a hearing that was supposed to be focused on her record, how much of it was never focused on her record. The resilience and persistence of white male grievance in particular is a thing. We saw that across many senators invoking sort of past debates, past issues. Why Brett Kavanaugh was ever mentioned once made no sense. They mentioned him more than they mentioned her record. And that was intentional because they couldn't let it go. And because they think ultimately that is what's more important. It is the narcissism that comes with arrogance of power, and the resistance to change. And we saw that front and center on full display, and we should continue to call it out because it made no sense. And I think I agree that people sort of thought, why are we talking about these issues? None of it had to do with her record, but it is because that is very much a part of their narrative. That is very much a part of their playbook, and it is how they it is the only thing that they have to run on, right? It is how they move their issues, is if we can just get to the division part, the grievance part, blame other people for our failures, our losses. That is what that narrative was about. And so I hope people not only saw it, but were paying attention, because we're going to see more of it. And it had no place in that hearing last week. It has no place in a confirmation vote next week. And we should continue to push back on it at all times.
Well, we saw it not only in the polls, but we also saw it in the book sales. I mean, Ted Cruz gave somebody, Brother Ibram, his book is #1. And that's just not Black parents purchasing the book. That's white parents, that's Hispanic parents, because they want to raise their children to understand and accept and respect differences. So I think that's another key takeaway. They weaponized race, but it backfired.
Yes,
And look, they even tried to weaponize her religion, and that backfired. I've seen all of those religious leaders on the steps of the court yesterday. So this is clearly backfired, because there's a hunger in America to move forward, not to go backwards, not to relitigate all of these old divisions that we have been accustomed to. But they saw in her what they want their daughters, and I hope their sons, to see in themselves, the ability to rise up to the level of respect that our parents have taught us to do. So
Donna, I want you to also, because you made it so that a lot of young people could witness that, those hearings. I know you did. You didn't tell me that, but I heard a bird told me that, right? But also you're with students all the time. What young people, what did they give you the feedback? How it felt for them, being a part of that, whether they were in that room or watching it, what that confirmation, what kind of feedback you received from them?
Well, first, as a Louisianian, we had a group of students that came up from Southern University Law School. And upon return to Louisiana last week, I thought, well, they'll just tell the dean and tell everybody on campus. I have clips from not only the state of Louisiana, but NPR from Atlanta, from their hometowns. They didn't just broadcast it back in Baton Rouge. They told everybody. For them, it was the moment of a lifetime. It's like going to the 1963 March on Washington. They were in the room when it happened, and they witnessed something that they wanted to share with everyone. So I hope to share some of those clips that I've received from the various deans and other law professors who had an opportunity to go into the room. As we speak, I am trying to put names of people on the list. Again, I live in DC, so I don't have any United States senators, but I have senators from my home state of Louisiana, and I have friends in the United States Senate. So I urge everyone to request a ticket for April 7th, 6th, 7th, and 8th, right, Leah? Is that the date? The 7th and the 8th, once she's discharged. We want to witness history. And I think by our presence, we can also shift the spirit, the negativity that's going to come out from having people stand on the floor and essentially cherry pick through her enormous volume of work to try to paint her as something she's not. And I tell you, of all of the things that I've heard over the last couple of weeks, when 3 or 4 Republican senators started to dwell on her sentencing and a handful of cases and wouldn't let it go after Senator Durbin and others tried to point out that's not true, that's not accurate. What I saw was, more media outlets willing to just go after these members by saying, holding them to account, but also by saying you are deliberately lying about the judge record. So we have another week ahead of us, and I just want to stress the importance that we continue to use social media, use the platforms. I'm heading to Howard University in a couple. I just finished Georgetown. I'm heading to Howard. Tonight, we're having a 7 o'clock conversation with how to use digital media. how to brand. And then at 8 o'clock, we have, as you all know, a national call with Women with Black Women and many others, the Black Women's Collective, all of you, where we're going to bring women from all over the country together to give the final marching orders for next week. And my students at Howard requested, our event is a politics and peace event. It ends at 8 p.m. They requested that we stay on campus, and I'm going to campus. At 8 p.m., I will be joining the call from Howard University's campus. Again, the students, not me, because if it was up to me after 7 o'clock, I'll have my wine and I'm done. The students are anxious, they are organized, and they want to be a part of this historic moment.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Got me fired up. Kim, and then ladies, one last question, and we know it's a busy day. But
so
I have one last question.
I mean, so the question of what I took away from that Senate confirmation hearing would be +1 to all of the very insightful and eloquent and thoughtful things that my sisters have shared. So I want to go a little low for a second and take the opportunity to explain to you that forever, now and forever, I will have a picture seared in my mind of Ketanji Brown Jackson sitting there, cool, calm, and collected, and Justice Kavanaugh during his hearing, screaming and yelling and having a tantrum. And I want this because I feel like everyone on this panel, what that showed me is what we've known our entire lives, what we've had to navigate our entire careers, the narrow path in which we are given in professional settings, and the entitlement in the wide lane that our white male counterparts are allowed to operate in. It also highlighted how, especially in this in the confirmation process, the way they try to talk about people of color, especially women of color, they say we are aggressive, they say we are unqualified, they say we are emotional. And if this woman is not a case study to break through all of that nonsense, noise, and foolery, then I don't know what that that was just an exercise to forever end any of that. And we're going to hear it again. And you will see me bring up those two pictures side by side once again to remind folks of what we're fighting against, and the tropes and the way that people try to attack and describe Black women, despite all that we put forward. But for now and forever, y'all, you will see me in the background with a picture of him and a picture of her at those hearings. Like
that's a historic poster. Last question. This has been great. I can't wait. It's gonna keep going all the rest into the night. Last question. Folks who are watching out there, a lot of folks are on social media, on Facebook specifically, watching this and listening. What do folks need to do now? And how can they do what you have going on with your organization? How can folks plug in or over this next, what now? Maybe we have maybe 10 days, right? What can they do individually? How can they get involved? What do you have going on? And whoever would like to start.
Well, I will start. I mean, I think that people should certainly weigh in with their senators to voice their support for Judge Jackson, regardless of whether they're Democrats or Republicans, whether they've announced a position or not, just to make their voices heard. And I know, Melanie and National Council of Negro Women in particular, and She Will Rise, all of them have undertaken efforts to connect people, to help them to learn how to make those calls if they don't know how to. So I would encourage everybody to make those calls and to talk to people in those offices. I would say, if you're able to send a letter to the editor or, write an op-ed in your local paper, it's not too late to share your view and to talk about the capacity and competence and the real need to have Judge Jackson on the court. I think that there will be, if people are in this area or inclined to come to the area, I'm sure that there will be public gatherings that are being developed. And so I would encourage people just to pay attention to that. And I know that there are other efforts that people are doing. I know we are doing an effort. We sent out an email, and I'll share the link with my friends at Black Women's Roundtable, of just collecting notes of encouragement and thank yous for Judge Jackson. She did an extraordinary job last week, and we wanted just to gather words of support. So that she knew that people were watching and paying attention and were appreciative of not simply her willingness to participate in that spectacle, but her willingness to serve, to take her wisdom and her insights and her brilliance to that very esoteric place that is the Supreme Court, and to do the work of the people. She's going to be terrific, and we wanted her to know that we were watching and thankful and grateful for her willingness to do that. So we are trying to do all of those things.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
Well, I would simply add the Black Women's Leadership Collective, which is comprised of many of the sisters here, Melanie and Kim, Donna, is a leadership and networking hub of national Black women's organizations. You can go to our website, blackwomensleadershipcollective.org, to see what we are doing as a collective, but also to connect to each of our organizations. If you go there, you can hit the button and get to Kim and get to Melanie and get to Alpha Kappa Alpha and get to Delta for Action. We're all on one site, and each of us is doing something. We're working collaboratively to maximize our resources and to make sure we can get everything done and not duplicating, but really reinforcing. So we've got a letter that's coming out soon, right, Kim? That She Will Rise is honchoing with thousands of Black women's signatures from all 50 states, so that we're really proud of, and we'll be delivering to the Senate. But we've got actions that are happening next week. So I would ask you just to connect with our website, pick an organization. There's 12 of them, 13 maybe, and find who's doing something that you like, and know that we're all supportive of each other. Melanie's got a day of call-in action, you name it, and we're gonna have a bunch of stuff next week as well. And we invite you to get involved. In addition to what Jocelyn said about calling your senators, what Donna said about calling your folk, getting the ticket if you wanna go to either the Senate hearing on Monday, at the Judiciary Committee, where they will be voting to discharge, we hope, her nomination to the floor. And we expect the floor vote of the United States Senate to occur either the 7th or the 8th, one of those days. So if you're of a mind, if you're in this area, you need tickets to the Senate gallery. Every senator has tickets to the gallery. You just need to get tickets to the gallery. It's a whole experience if you haven't done it. Don't go to the bathroom, don't drink no water, because once you're in, you can't leave. But that's a thing. And be there to give the sister some support. And if you are able to go Monday and get tickets for that, be there to give them the Black women death stare as they are preparing to take their vote.
So I will say plus to all of that. Make your voice heard. Involve yourself in an action. Put your children, girls and boys, in front of the television to watch our democracy and how it works. But also, you all write a check to one of these organizations, right? This work does not happen in a vacuum, and resources are necessary. So please give what you can.
I will, I'll do the plus. And I will start by giving the telephone numbers, area code 202-224-3121. That's area code 202-224-3121. That's the Capitol switchboard. You can, if you know the name of your senator, you can say, I would like to speak to Senator Booker. If you don't know the name of your senator, then I suggest you tell them your state, and they will transfer you to that senator. Also, if you have an opportunity and can utilize social media accounts, most of the members have offices in your home state. Please visit the office, send a letter, or make a local call to your United States Senator, wherever you may be from. If you live in Louisiana, our home state senators have offices in Baton Rouge, New Orleans, Lafayette, Shreveport, and Monroe. So you have multiple opportunities to connect with your home state senator. If you have a social media account, Facebook, Instagram, help me out, Twitter. How can I forget Twitter? I live on Twitter. TikTok. Please use the hashtag confirm Judge Jackson. She will rise. There are other hashtags, right, Melanie? Black Women Lead. What other hashtags we using?
Black Women Take Action.
Black Women Take Action. And again, if you go on that website of the collective, you will see some of the social media kits that we have available for you to use. And please utilize them. If you can post your recipes, post your workout, then please post something affirmative to help Judge Jackson. Finally, and I say this as a woman that prays all the time, pray for Judge Jackson, pray for her family. This has been an ordeal. Yes, she's qualified. She was well prepared for the hearings. But I can tell you, as somebody who knows what it is like to be out front, and all of you know what I mean when I say this, she is likely to be on the tremendous negative attack, especially when you have QAnon involved in all of the insane things that they've said. So pray for her safety, pray for her strength, pray for her grace so that she can get through this. And we will all rise when she is sworn in to be the next justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you. Kim?
I would say my last call. So one, I'm gonna tell you something. This circle, this is a bad sister circle right here. We started that endorsement letter. I remember the first time I emailed them, I said, ladies, we have 20 signatures. Next thing I know, they're like, oh, we're about to activate. We now have 5,800 signatures of sisters from every great state of this country. And look, I wasn't 100% sure we were everywhere. There were a couple of states where I was like, I don't know. But every state is represented, and it's critical for those conversations as she's voted out of committee to be able to reach out and have that entree with the senators that are not on the Senate Judiciary Committee, right? And are not normally engaged on nominations, to be able to start the conversation with, we have constituents from your state that are in support. And so this is the power of sisterhood. This is the power of circles like this. I was blown away. And y'all, I didn't mention that this was over the course of 7 days. 5,800 signatures. So I just want to say that is amazing. Yes. The other piece that I want to encourage everyone, we, as She Will Rise, we are tracking the nomination of every Black woman that is nominated, right? At the district and circuit levels. I encourage you all, after you make your call about Ketanji, please make your call about please check to see if any of those sisters are pending in your state, and call your senator and say she deserves a quick up, down vote. She deserves her floor vote. We need to keep making history throughout the entire judiciary. And there's still just so much work to do. So those would be my major ask for today.
Thank you. And I was going to share what I heard, a couple of key dates. April 4th, I'm just going to say 7th and maybe 8th, right? So think next week. So next week, it is Get Across the Finish Line week, right? It's the sweepstakes. It's all the states on this is riding on it. So just April 4th is the, I'm getting the year messed up in my head. It's the anniversary of, Donna mentioned it, of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s, the anniversary of his assassination. So, and this is also the day that she will be her vote coming out of committee. So all need to focus on April 4th, lifting up the memory through real action, right? And he died fighting for justice for all of us. And so that's a way to really commemorate Dr. King's memory by being involved in something this very, very, very important moment. And I think it was Leah that said it gave us April 7th or 8th, one of those 2 dates. So next week, it's all about Ketanji. It's all about Just Jackson. It's all about getting across that finish line. It's all about shutting down the noise. And so as I serve as moderator, I got to make sure that I let people know Black Women's Roundtable, Black Women's Leaders and Allies, working with NCNW, and all of us together are working together. I want to thank the folks who've been helping to sponsor some of the work, SEIU, right, who we partnered with, and Leah, we're talking with Power Rising. We're going to do the phone banks next week. We can't let off the gas. I know people say, oh, it's over. No, it's not over till it's over. So we got to keep pushing and drowning out the madness and the noise that we know are going to come at her in a way that will make maybe last week even look like a picnic, because there's more of them that can get on that floor and talk crazy. So I want to thank AARP, Build Back Together, and Amadar, who've been supporting our work around the SCOTUS nomination and utilizing this. And so ladies, sisters, thank y'all so much and for being able to join us. I see you in a couple of hours as we continue to push this message out. It's a marathon, right? And so we're at the finish line, and we have to get over. And I'm just so excited. I'm so excited. And thank you all so very much. And I turn, Donna, I'm gonna do yours. I give my balance of my time back to you. Right?
I yield my
go and do what you need to do. Follow us. Thank you all. Thank you to the National Coalition team. Thank you to you know your names. Thank you for our folks who are on the panel 1 and also of course this panel 2 today for our Black Women's Roundtable Power Table Talk series that we do every month to talk about the issues that are important to Black women and our families and our communities and our nation. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Roland Martin Unfiltered, for all you do and for continuing to be our partner in this, our media partner. Y'all have a good rest of your day.
Women's
Love
history.
everybody.
We're making history. God
Yes.
bless you, Melanie. Thank you for
Okay.
your leadership.
Love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.